All right, back from a little vacation that I took. I've got a couple of clips here that I recorded while I was on vacation on the new ship, the Royal Sovereign. I was not crazy enough to dump almost $80 US into the ship. However, from some of the free crates that we got from the event pass this month, I got wildly lucky and I actually pulled this from one of those crates. So figured I'd go ahead and do a review for you guys. So yeah, I haven't had this ship for very long. I've done... Well, these were like the first 2 battles that I did with this ship, but since then I've done a few more. I've probably done 8 battles in total now with it in randoms. And it's a pretty darn good ship if I'm being honest. The Royal Sovereign here, the gimmick for it is that it's a British battleship that is secondary focused. It's got 8 381mm guns that are fairly inaccurate, I will say. However, since it's a brawling battleship, hopefully you can kind of substitute by getting a little closer range to kind of make up for some of those poor accuracy. On the secondary guns, I don't remember off the top of my head quite how many it's got, but it's got a whole lot of secondary guns, and they're decently accurate. If you build into them and you use the flag and everything, you can get them out to 9.5 kilometers. I do remember that they have a decently good fire chance at, I think, the higher caliber ones have like a 13% fire chance, and the lower have like a 6 or 7% fire chance. The penetration on them is not spectacular. I believe that the penetration on the higher caliber secondary guns are 25 millimeters, and I can't quite remember what the lower caliber are, but either way, you're going to be... In lower tiers, you'll get some pen damage from those, but in upper tiers, it's mostly going to be the fires that you set with them. I've played around a little bit, thinking about whether or not it would be worth taking IFHE, and it's always kind of a hard decision on these secondary battleships if that IFHE gets you past a threshold that's worth it. I did check, and it would bring the higher caliber secondary guns up to 31 millimeters a pen, and I can't quite remember what the lower, I think they get up to like 20, 22, 23 maybe. So yeah, not quite that 32 millimeter pen threshold that you want. Over here, this little cheeky cruiser is just kind of thought he was going to roll out in front of us and we'd get a really good strike on him, but then he starts backing up. So far we haven't been able to see a whole lot of action in this. The Royal Sovereign is a very, very slow moving ship. You can see we're only going 22.4 knots here, and we've got it full speed ahead. That's a little difficult to kind of get where you want to go, especially when you get up tiered into higher matches with other battleships that move, 50% faster than you on average. It does make things challenging. Other characteristics, it's got a really good rudder shift time, and it's actually got a pretty good baked-in acceleration time, which is nice. So it's really just top speed that's the issue. Its armor scheme is kind of what you'd expect for a British battleship. It's got 26 millimeters of armor in the bow and stern. However, it does have a pretty well-armored side plating here in the middle. And it's got pretty weak deck armor. So basically from long distances, you're going to take quite a bit of plunging fire damage from shells kind of falling down on your deck and smashing through. However, from close range, which is what you want to be doing with this brawling battleship, that kind of thicker plating on the side that you've got will help bounce quite a few shells. And if I remember right, I think that plating is like 150 millimeters, I want to say. Don't quote me on that. Some other characteristics of this ship, you can see we just popped a super heal. The super heal is really interesting. It only lasts for like 11 or 12 seconds, but you heal back like roughly 22% of your health with each one of those super heals. If you have Cunningham and if you're running a full heal build, you can potentially, if you get the 2 million potential damage, get up to 6 of those super heals. Whether or not you'd actually get to use all of that is very unlikely. I think that the super heals only have like 10% Citadel heal, and I want to say like 70 or 80% damage heal. So probably not worth going for a full 6 heal build. However, I do feel like having maybe one extra, like a 4th super heal, might be kind of nice on this. Maybe even a 5th, question mark, but definitely I think that 4th would make a little bit of a difference at least. The other nice thing about the super heal is that you get them very quickly, so you can keep popping them over and over, which allows you to keep pushing out and being more aggressive. In addition to the super heal, you get a hydro that is a 3 kilometer for torp spot and ship spotting, so pretty relatively close range, but definitely useful. One kind of wild thing on the hydro is that it lasts for like 2.5 minutes, so you get a heck of a lot of use out of that hydro once you pop it. Another rather unique thing on the ship is that you get access to submarine surveillance, and the range on that is 6 kilometers. Only 17 seconds, I want to say, on that, so you'll most likely only get 1 round of ASW drops off on what you're targeting, and since there's that 10-second lockout after you spot an enemy ship. Although, to be fair, I'm not sure if that's true for the submarine surveillance spotting as well. I'm not too sure on that. Either way, your teammates will probably also not have a whole lot of time to drop ASW on the sub either, but so far I've had one match where I was actually able to get in close enough to a sub that I was able to pop or maybe I had 1 or 2 matches where I was able to pop my submarine surveillance, and it actually made a difference. So it, especially at these lower tiers where there's a lot of, double, triple sub games, having that submarine surveillance on a battleship is really, really, really useful for helping to keep you alive for longer. Although, to be fair, at these lower tiers, most of the sub players are extraordinarily poor, even though a lot of sub players don't play very well in general. Pushing out here, this ends up kind of being a mistake on my part. I didn't realize quite how many ships were still hanging around this corner. This guy totally surprised me. I didn't realize he was that close. We get into a secondary match with him, which is exactly what we want, I guess. But he's kind of at a poor angle for us. You do have to turn pretty broadside to get all of your secondary guns off on the enemy target, which is sometimes a little bit difficult to do, of course, and a little risky. However, the firing angles on the primary guns are actually pretty nice firing angles, so you definitely don't have to show too much broadside to get those off. I do end up turning here, hoping that I can maybe get all of my turrets off and just dev strike him. I don't quite get those front turrets off. I didn't realize that they were not quite done reloading, and we end up going down there. So just pushed a little too aggressively, but like I said, this is one of my first matches in this ship. I was still learning it. We still did 124,000 damage at a, tier 6, 7, 8 game, so pretty good. In a second here, we'll move on to the second match that I've got for you. And we do a little bit better. I don't know if we quite get as much damage, but I think we do end up pulling off a win on that match. So, anyways, moving on to the next match. Overall, so far my impressions of this ship is that it's very good and feels relatively comfortable to play. I will say that the biggest downside that I've definitely felt in matches is that slow top speed, especially if you get double up tiered into like a tier 9 game. That 22 point whatever kilometers of top speed is a little painful there. You definitely notice it. So maybe try running brisk on it. I just don't quite have enough captain skill points to throw that on, but we'll go over the captain build that I've got here at the end of the video, as well as kind of look at some of the specifics for the ship. But otherwise, yeah, I haven't quite figured out the right level of how much I can push with this ship, how aggressive I can play with it. I'm still kind of tinkering around with that, but the ship, especially with those super heals, does feel relatively durable. I feel like I can take a decent amount of damage as long as it doesn't come too quickly without worrying about going down. You do definitely feel the pain when you turn broadside to an enemy and get struck there. If you take any citadel damage, the ship kind of starts to feel like a glass cannon, but if you can stay decently angled to the enemy targets, it's not the end of the world. It's definitely pretty durable. It does have a little bit low health, or on the low end of health for tier 7 battleships, only 51,000. So that could be improved upon for sure. If I'm comparing this to like an alternative tier 7 brawling battleship, like let's say the West Virginia 44, kind of some of the main differences are that I feel like this ship has a little bit more overall utility, just since you get that hydro and the submarine surveillance. You can do a little bit more team play, although to be fair, that hydro is not really going to be spotting torps for your team very much with only 3 kilometers of range, but you can do a little bit of team play there. With the super heal, you can also kind of tank a little bit more damage if you're strategic about when you take that damage and when you pop the heals. So, and that way you also have a bit more flexibility in team play on that front. Kind of where maybe a ship like the West Virginia 44 is better, I'd say a ship like that is, honestly, I'd say the West Virginia 44 just feels more tanky for like short-term engagements. Again, like this ship's kind of new to me and I'm still figuring it out, but I feel more comfortable in the West Virginia 44 taking like short-term engagements than I do in this ship currently. However, in a long-term engagement, I would feel more comfortable taking this ship just with its heals and its really good armor scheme. So yeah, I do feel like the secondary accuracy on these guns is maybe not as great as I'd like it to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, you definitely get a heck of a lot of hits with these secondary guns. Maybe it would be a little too cracked if they were more accurate, but I do find that it feels, especially at that like max 9.5 kilometers range, a little bit like a shotgun. It leaves me wishing that I just had a little bit more consistency on them, but they do pretty good, especially once you get in close. So compared to maybe a ship like the Scharnhorst 43, obviously something like the Scharnhorst is going to be a lot more maneuverable, a lot quicker, but I do feel like this has kind of better damage potential and better output than the Scharnhorst 43. Little questionable on which out of the two of those, this or the Scharnhorst 43 would be more durable, just since Scharnhorst has kind of a cracked amount of health that makes it last forever. But then this gets the healing, so a little hard to say. But for a British brawling battleship, I think that this is a really, really solid pick. There is an alternative version of the ship that's available currently as part of the events going on. That alternative version is a Russian battleship. It's basically identical to this, except it focuses more on primary guns. You can see we popped the submarine surveillance there, and we did spot him. We're going to land a couple of ASW drops on him now. He's trying to speed away so that he misses or throws off some of that, so we won't get the best shot in the world, but we'll get some good hits in. I thought I was just barely going to miss those torps. I think if I hadn't decelerated so much a little earlier, I think I would have been able to dodge them if I were at full speed, but I just didn't quite have the maneuverability. Lost about half of our health there, but it's okay because we can heal it back. That sub is still all over us. Our submarine surveillance has like I think a minute and a half cooldown, so it's going to take a while to get that. We are into secondary range now of this North Carolina, and this is kind of exactly the type of scenario that you want to be in. We're well angled. We're getting some of our secondary guns off, not quite as many as I'd like, but I'm a little, like I said, especially in this match, still a little uncomfortable and unsure of how how well this armor could hold up. I didn't want to turn a little too broadside to this guy, but we're lighting him on fire. We're kind of shredding him apart. I think I had HE loaded then because he was bow in, so I did aim for a superstructure. Switch to AP since he's going broadside. Sub is still after us, really annoying. ASW's on cooldown. North Carolina goes down. Drop the ASW right on that sub's head. We do dodge those torps, so big win for us. We're not going to dodge these two, though, unfortunately. He is close enough that we took like the super decreased amount of damage from those, though, which is nice, but we did get a flood. We'll pop our damage control now and get rid of that flood. Now we've definitely secured this flank. The enemy is very out of position. They're still bunched up in their spawn, so we've kind of got free reign now that we can just kind of wrap around and push into them. I was going to try to push behind them, but really, honestly, the big reason why I chose not to is because of how poor the speed and maneuverability on this ship is. I figured that I was going to get way outsped by my friendly ship that's kind of pushing around their back. So, and I could tell that the enemy seemed like they kind of wanted to push over this way toward the A cap, so I figured maybe I should just kind of sit here, get a little bit of island cover against a few of these ships, and then try to do what I can to defend from the enemy ships that seem like they're heading this way. Our teammate did just go down there, the hood, to, I think, the enemy's CV, and now that I'm, looking at the map around this time, I was realizing that we're really not in a great position here. We've got a CV behind us that's maybe pushing up a little farther than it should. We've got a cruiser that I think is staying dark, kind of off to our flank. We do yoink the kill there on the Nelson, but now the enemy CV is kind of giving us some grief. So, and we've got yet another ship kind of coming our way. So, oh yeah, that was a nasty hit there. Obviously, we were a little unangled there. I think we probably could have bounced a lot of that if we would have been angled just a tiny bit more. But yeah, I mean, that's a British battleship for you right there. Down to basically no health. Our heal has like 30 seconds left. It's got that quick cooldown, but we're just not going to be able to hold out when we go down here. So that's our second match. We did end up winning this one. I'm not going to stay around to kind of show it, but we had all three of the caps and we ended up winning on points. So yeah, moving on though, I've got another clip for you here. Looking at the ship in port, it's a very beautiful ship. It does have the plugs in the barrels. I think, don't quote me, I haven't had time to look this up since I was on vacation, but I'm pretty sure that this ship is a real steel ship that is maybe a museum ship now, ? So anyways, yeah. This is kind of what the armor scheme looks like. Citadel's a little bit above water, so that can give you a little bit of grief at times. But overall, you can see this like thicker armor plating here on the side that I was talking about that kind of protects it. So you can bounce quite a few shells with that, which is really nice. You do have a little bit of a thin torpedo belt there that's covering some of that thicker armor, but you can do some work with that. There's the primary guns there. Nothing too special on those. Like I said, pretty poor dispersion. Secondary armament, 2.7 on the reload, 13% fire chance, 9.5 kilometers, 2 seconds flat on that reload, maximum damage, 1500. So yeah, that's the secondary guns. The ASW, I kind of wish was a little better since you do have the submarine surveillance, but it's really nothing special. It only does like 4,200 max damage per hit. This is currently what I'm running. I am running the secondary auxiliary on the first slot, just because if you're gonna build a ship for secondary guns, I really don't like the secondary guns to go out all the time, so a lot of times I end up deciding to take that. I am running some flags now. Normally I wouldn't for random battles, but just a little something else. That's that heal for you, 920 I think that says, for 14 seconds, so it's a heck of a lot of health, and you can even boost that more if you get the captain skill that gives you 10% extra healing time. So whole lot of healing. Got that hydro, short range, got the submarine surveillance. This is my captain build right now. My top 2 level choices, I'll probably change. This is my captain build from my Agricort, I believe, or something like that. So this probably isn't the best optimized for the Royal Sovereign, but that's what I've got going for now. I'll probably take the skill that lets you increase the speed that you can use your consumables, and then maybe I'll probably take the healing buff that gives me a little bit longer lasting heals and then 1 extra heal. I kind of feel like that might be a little more useful over concealment, but it's always kind of hard to decide where to spend your skills on these secondary battleships, and a lot of times I kind of wish that I had like 2 or 3 different captains to try out a few different builds, but alas, I don't play a whole lot of British ships, so the Mighty Jingles here at level 17 is my highest level British cap. Well, he's probably just about my only British captain that I've got leveled up, but yeah, so that's what I've got going now. I definitely wouldn't recommend spending like $78 on this ship, or $78 on any ship, but it's a pretty good ship. If you can pick it up for cheap later, I'd recommend. If not, I don't think you're missing out too much. I think there are, other alternatives like the Scharnhorst 43 that are just as viable for kind of similar type of gameplay. So don't feel too bad if you miss out on this one. I don't think it's a must-have ship, but if you pick it up, great. I do think it's a strong ship. It's a fun ship to play so far. Definitely quite a bit of utility there, and it's always fun to kind of smack some subs in the face. So that's what we've got for today. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like, make sure to subscribe.